Welcome to the Growth and Banter podcast. My name is Blake Micola, CEO and founder of GMS Media Group, one of Australia's leading creative digital advertising agencies. This podcast is for any business owner or aspiring business owner looking to learn the insights and strategies in how to maximize your potential online in today's complex digital landscape. Today, we're joined by Matthew Lovemore, an ex-Facebook employee and our group account director at GMS. He's going to teach us the advertising strategies that he's learned at Facebook and also across the 1,000 brands that we worked with over the past decade. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, hello.
All the way from New Zealand. And we're in a 40-degree heat wave in Sydney right now. How are you finding the heat?
I hate it. I can't deal, but air conditioning is good.
So today we're going to talk about advertising strategies, and not just ad strategies, but performance advanced ad strategies, Omni-Channel, but also your experience working at Facebook. Now, not many people, I guess, can say that they've had the experience of working at a company like Facebook, but also now being with us for 7 years, about that?
Coming up to 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
And I think one of the main reasons why you've excelled so much, and arguably probably one of the best paid media buying specialists in Australia, is from not only your experience at Facebook, but being with us for that amount of time and working across thousands of accounts. But talk me through your experience at Facebook and how you've got to where you are now, being one of the best in Australia.
I guess a lot of it comes down to just knowing how sort of Facebook operated a lot of the advertising and the way that they did the training. It was a bit of a different introduction to the whole advertising space. Like, if not many people will know, but prior to when I was working at Facebook, I was in IT, completely not marketing related. And so kind of being thrown into that cycle of going straight into the advertising space was a very different perspective than, say, going through uni or, going through more traditional means of getting into that space. So a lot of it is very wildly different from what a lot of ways that people got into it.
And you've got like a real in-depth tech knowledge as well.
Yeah.
So that IT experience you had then working at Facebook, now media buying and heading up all our accounts for 7 years, like that progression, like how important was it having that IT experience before working at Facebook to sort of understand digital technology and digital media, that being so pivotal as a core sort of foundation?
A lot of it actually is from customer relations. Like, the way that I communicate with clients and that sort of stuff was actually what I picked up from IT being, and ironically, when I was in IT, I worked with advertising agencies, some of the biggest in Auckland. So I picked up a lot of stuff from that inherently. And, my best friend, my wife, they both worked in the advertising space. So just unconsciously picking up so much from what they were doing that as soon as I got the role at Facebook, it kind of just started to flow naturally, and I realized, like, damn, this is actually all making sense, and starting to kind of build that structure around what I wanted to do. And then meeting you guys, ironically, this is actually what started it.
This is the biggest 360 I reckon ever. Like so where we are right now, in a facility that I used to work out of in 2016, where I think we first connected.
Yep.
And I had the Cub account. Cub was one of our clients, and that's where we are today. And you were a Facebook rep on the account, and I was managing it. And then you got in touch and you were helping me on it. And you were the only one that would just call me out of the blue and just be like, give me advice. And I remember I was even like on it was during this time, actually. It was in December, and I remember being at like a Christmas function, and you're calling me, and I'm just like, hey mate, and you say just let it, making sure everything's all good, and you just went over and above. And I don't think you get that support now. And I know a lot of tech companies have gone through a lot of hiring and firing right now, and Facebook lost thousands of staff, as have a lot of tech companies through sort of the tech crumble, or whatever you call it. But you just stood out, and I think, like, talk me through what set you apart, you feel, at Facebook for you to stand out so much against other reps at the time.
I mean, it's probably not one single thing that kind of took me outside of where everyone else was, but I think a big part of it was just actually caring. And it sounds so stupidly simple, But it's the same premise that I do with all the clients that I work with now, right? Like nothing's changed. It's just more, I knew where my priorities were. I knew what accounts that I needed to kind of make sure that we're happy and providing that support. And I think that's probably just giving a damn is probably the easiest thing that I can work on.
Yeah, no, mate, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Actually caring about who you're working with and who you're advising, and going over and above. Like, yeah, you definitely have that hands down. And I think that's why you're able to be where you are right now, and why we've had such great retention over the years. I think our knowledge, like even when we first met, from then to now, is vastly different due to the experience we've had in the agency, working with different clients, high caliber of clients, offering more services. Like we just offered Facebook ads back in the day. That was it. Now we offer full service almost, and advising and doing like real in-depth business advisory as well. But yeah, talk me through like how long you were at Facebook for, and what were the biggest learnings and lessons you had there coming into then, working with us at GMS? Yeah,
so I was there for about 18 months. First 2 weeks is basically just training, no calls or anything like that. And then from there, it was just, here's your accounts. Here's 300 accounts that you work on the quarter, and go have fun, figure it out.
Yeah.
And, I had a great team behind me with my old managers there. And, the support was there to kind of go, hey, you want to kind of specialize in the e-com space. That's what I really like because there was a lot less guesswork. And so towards the end of my tenure at Facebook, I kind of focused pretty much everything on the e-com space. And
we didn't do e-com until you joined us. We were just doing lead gen and service-based businesses and events and, gyms and stuff like that. You came and really integrated that e-com skill set into the business.
Yeah. And that's the good thing is, if you know the e-com space, a lot of that can transplant into every other business type, more so from audience structures, campaign types, and all that sort of things, just ever so slightly different. But a lot of the learnings can cross over. And for me, that was, I got the kicks from driving the e-com space when I was there. And that's kind of what led me to going, well, I could kind of start running accounts on my own. That was the ironic part was when I was at Facebook, never touched ads.
You're just advising.
I was just advising, and I loved the advisory part. Like I froth on doing that.
And that is a huge part of what we do today and what we've carried through as well. So like that mixed with the ability to place media, like that in itself is a rare skill set.
It's, the role entails what I'm doing now is 25% running ads, 25% figuring out what the business needs, 50% customer service. And I think that sort of balancing act is ironic in what we do because there's so much that needs to happen outside of just running ads. So
I literally just had this conversation with someone, and it was a great conversation with a prospect. We were on an hour and a half consultation, and we often get some brands, and there's agencies that charge much more than us. Price point is an important thing, but being able to back it up with what the service is, and she asked, why I've got other quotes that are 1,000, 2,000 a month. You guys are, double or triple that. Why? And the reason is that we do so much heavy lifting on the consulting and advisory with brands. You could go work on Fiverr and find someone to place some media if you've got the right assets, and they might do an okay job. But the brands out there, 90% of the time, need extra support outside of the ad, and that's where the advisory and consulting comes into play. So it's like that experience that you've had from IT, consulting, now placing media. I think that's a perfect. Yeah, it's a perfect.
It's trio. Kind of sort of come full circle, but not really. Completely separate industries, but again, because my expertise when I was in the IT space was all around working with advertising businesses, but from a completely different approach. Yeah, it's kind of come full circle reasonably nicely. So,
and in terms of things going full circle, there's been so much change in the digital landscape. It's very evident. Everyone understands, all algorithm changes, this and that, iOS privacy updates, AI. What do you think has been the biggest evolution within digital marketing since your time at Facebook through to today?
I think a lot of it comes down to, when advertisers are running ads, not overthinking a lot of things. Like, they're like, oh, we need to have these really niche audiences and, we need to really define it and, having multiple layers of interest targeting. That's just not necessary these days. Like the algorithm's gotten to a point where it's smart enough to understand if you've got the right content with the right back end, you've got a better chance of performing better. And historically on Facebook, it was just have a whole bunch of different audiences, segmented down. That's probably the biggest shift that I've seen is just, and it's good in general because it's simplified the process of creating ads. It's no longer you don't need to have this massive tenure of skill set to run a successful campaign. But again, that's why advertising plays a small role, and that's why the advisory part has become such a massive part for us.
Yeah.
Because you need that in order to have the ads function. That's probably the biggest shift that I've seen since 2016, 2017.
And that brings me into what I wanted to touch on right now is Advantage Plus and Performance Max. Probably the two biggest things. Advantage Plus in Meta, i.e. Facebook and Instagram, and Performance Max in Google. Talk me through, what they are to those who don't know and how best to use them for brands.
Yeah. So I'll kind of combine both of them because they are very similar technologies with the way that they work, but essentially they are AI-driven performance campaigns dedicated specifically to conversions. Again, you can run them for other objectives, but the main thing to look out for with these types of campaigns is it's built to focus on what your business objective is. At the moment, Advantage Plus is obviously specifically designed for purchases, but you can use it at an ad set level for things like lead generation, and I've been doing that successfully for 3 months now since it launched. But for the most part, a lot of it just comes down to letting the system handle a lot of the hard lifting. I love it for creative split testing. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, makes your testing quicker. But you don't want to rely solely on it. You still need your branding campaigns on Google. You'll still need your interest targeting on Facebook and Instagram. It's just accommodating to fill a gap. And that's where I think those two objectives are such a strong part of your business tools. When you're running ads, just don't rely on them. Yeah. I
think that's it's important to know that, when the ad platform across the board, across Google and Meta was in its infancy, I think a lot of advertisers were trying to manipulate the algorithm and do very, very heavy lifting campaigns and, break ads down from, the campaign level, ad set level, the retargeting with different windows from 1 to 3 days, 3 to 7 days, 7 to 14, etc. There was a lot of manipulation that people were trying to do to almost trick the algorithm to place better ads and get their ads seen against their competitors. I think with AI and with, Advantage Plus and Performance Max, it's almost, they're almost doing the job for us now. So the manipulation was fun. It was hard, but it was fun and it was great to be able to do that. But now it's almost, you just got to trust the algorithm, right? You got to trust the platform. You got to trust AI. And like you said, going back to brand, it's more important to focus on things like content and your copywriting and your messaging and looking at your website, ensuring that you've got the conversions from the traffic that's sending to, your owned media. So talk me through, I think your advice with, people out there thinking that they're trying to trick the algorithm or they're focused too much on the algorithm. Should they just, create good content and copywriting and just let the platform do its thing? Or do you think there's still some manipulation involved?
There's definitely still manipulation, but nowhere near to the degree that we used to see. I miss the days of having 3 day, 7 day, 14 day, 21 day, 30 to 180. I love them. But the thing is, it's changed, especially with anything website related, it's always going to struggle. But if you're wanting to kind of maximize that performance, it's making sure that post-click is where you need to spend a lot more time on these days. Getting the click is not so much of an issue. It's what happens after the click that's becoming significantly more important across the board. And
then retargeting. How do customers retarget now with cookieless world? this whole third-party tracking dilemma it's affecting every business out there. It's not just marketers. It's the ability to be able to track someone online is diminishing. What's the workaround?
So there's multiple ways that you can look at it. My ideal workaround is clustering. So say, for example, if you used to have the engagement from Facebook and Instagram separated to your website traffic remarketing, start to cluster them together. So what this is focusing on is efficiency. So rather than, the smaller the audience, the more expensive it becomes. That's naturally a give and take process. But if you start to work on clustering those audiences together as opposed to separating them out, let the algorithm take over that process, that's where, as long as you've got the creative content there, that will be a hybrid between something that's relevant to engagement audiences versus someone who's visited the website. That's where you can kind of utilize a bit more of a clustering technique as opposed to having them separated. Depending on the business size, if you're seeing 1 million hits on the website a month, you can probably still cluster, but it's definitely not as efficient as it used to be a few years ago.
And it's funny, as an ad agency, we're much more than advertising. We bang on about the fact that it's not the ad that solves the problem. It's not just about the ad. Like how important it is everything else around the ad to make a successful campaign. And in your eyes, having worked across thousands of brands from Facebook through to, 7 years at GMS and, all the fantastic brands we brought on this year, what do you feel makes a great ad and also a successful campaign?
I think a great ad is whatever is driving consumer engagement, right? It doesn't matter if you personally prefer the ad. I don't care. I don't care if you like an ad personally. What matters is if the community and the people that we're targeting want that actual engagement. A big part of that whole process is what happens, as I mentioned before, the post-click is so important. Doesn't matter if you've got the best ad in the world, if your landing page or you're not converting on the back end, it's have a systematic issue on the front end. And so, it's important to always consider, what are we getting the customer to do, or what are we getting that person to end up going from that click? That's the easy part. And then it's cycling them through. It doesn't matter if it's e-commerce. It doesn't matter if it's lead generation. The process still exists. It's still going from one system to the next to get the objective. And that's why it's just so damn important that you have everything kind of all nicely integrated together. Your ads look great. They're driving the clicks. We're optimizing for the right objective based on what the business wants. And then we go, okay, how's the landing page look? Where are we sending them to? A good example is sending people to a collection page as opposed to a product page. If you understand and can look at the data, some people are hopeless and they'll look at the product page, not really see anything, and they won't click through. But if they've got a collection, they might not show the product that they specifically want, but they'll scroll down a little bit or they'll see something that they really like. And then potentially add to cart to purchase. Same thing as a funnel for a lead generation client. If we have 2 different offers, okay, we know that, say, offer 1 might be getting $4 a conversion. Offer 2, $30 a conversion. But when you look at the back end, to get someone on a call might cost you $400 to $500, and the quality is terrible on that first funnel. But you might be getting a cost of call at $100 on the second funnel. Cost of lead means nothing at that point because one is generating more revenue than the other, and you want to double down on that. More leads doesn't equate to more sales, and that's why that process is so damn important.
Absolutely. You can, in any brand out there, if you're getting thousands of leads and you don't know how to convert those leads, what's the point? I mean, you can build a great database, but again, if you're not nurturing that database, then you're going to be left with no revenue, and revenue is the lifeblood of any business. What do you feel is the most common mistake people make in terms of, like, let's talk about e-commerce? Like what's the most common mistake that brands make before they start advertising?
Not looking at the data.
Right.
That is sometimes really painful to kind of see great success on the ads and not factoring in everything after the click. So a great example would be, hey, someone is driving a lot of traffic to a product page. Okay, well, what's the product page's conversion rate? And if they're not factoring those in, then the ads will never perform. It's a higher conversion rate generally equates to a better CPA on the front end. So factoring that in, I think that's the biggest mistake that people are not looking at, is utilizing analytics, utilizing your Shopify's backend to kind of go, okay, where are the gaps? Where am I know that I'm seeing a strong cost of add to cart on the front end, but then I'm only seeing, say, out of every 100 add to carts, one purchase. So we know that just factoring that in on very basic level, bam, that's the product page's issue. So we're getting those add to carts, they're just kind of stopping from that process. So it's looking at that data and kind of being able to dissect it and to ensure that you can kind of figure out what the solution is.
And like, this is something we provide on a daily basis. Where do you think other agencies go wrong?
I think they are so consumed on the front end of the ads that they're not factoring in everything else. And that's why I said 25% of my time is running ads. And that might not seem like a lot, but I'm good at what I do. But also And also we have a team as well. It's not just you. But for me, it's just going, they're not factoring in everything else that makes a successful campaign. I'm not talking about a promotion or anything. It's just, maybe I should rephrase it, a successful business. That part is probably the biggest weakness that I do find, that people they're so consumed with ad performance that they're not just factoring in everything else. Because ad performance heavily relies on the performance of everything else post-click.
Yeah. Now, there is a huge amount of saturation. There is complexity going on with different platforms popping up, different social media platforms. There's search engines, you've got programmatic, you've got traditional radio, print, you name it, PR, like the list goes on, outdoor marketing. Where do you feel like attention should be spent right now, particularly for maybe a business that is growing and looking to scale and spend more, going from, spending 10 grand a month from a marketing budget to 100 grand is a very different story. Where do you feel the attention is, and where should businesses be focusing?
I think there's no single placement that would be stronger than others. Obviously Meta is still the king when it comes to direct response performance ads, but
because it's so seasoned and it just has the data. Yeah.
TikTok is obviously a great platform in terms of engagement and community building. But again, that's the conversion side is still not quite where it needs to be. It's in its infancy. Very much so. But as a tool, it's still incredibly powerful, but it's just so dependent on the type of business that they operate. Say Snapchat is a great platform for direct conversion. Snapchat's very similar to, say, what ads Facebook and Instagram used to be 3 years ago. And as a platform, it's great. But that system may not perform for someone who's in the lead gen space because of the demographic and just the sheer lack of volume comparatively to other platforms. So it's just so dependent, but it's understanding what the business needs are and just making sure that we've got the right platforms and tools to utilize to maximize the performance for ads.
And when a brand does eventually diversify and, for instance, use Google or Meta as a starting point and start to diversify, whether that is TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Pinterest, whatever it is, when they are running an omni-channel campaign, because that's when things start to get a bit tricky. And that, again, this is what we do day to day. What's the best way to look at all the data and make sure you're not cross-pollinating that data? And how do you report across multiple campaigns for a particular brand?
So there's obviously sort of two primary ways that I personally look at it. And within GMS, it's kind of how we've worked towards.
I'm asking you questions if I don't know, but of course.
But the first one, it goes back to basics. It's what we call MER. We've been working with this document for about 2 years now, especially with clients. It's bringing in more and more platforms.
And what's MER stand for?
So MER is marketing efficiency ratio.
Right.
So rather than looking at individual platforms and how they perform, we know that a Facebook ad will have a view. They might not click on the ad, but then they'll go to Google and then they might start seeing Pinterest ads. So there's nothing systematic that we don't want to kind of isolate a single platform. Every platform has different strengths and weaknesses. It's just making sure that we decide what platform can counter each of the weaknesses of the other. And so the MER document is built and designed to look at things a little bit more simply.
Simplistically. Tongue twister.
It's the heat.
And it's almost Christmas, you're forgiven.
Exactly. So a lot of that just comes down to plugging in your total expenditure. You can do this daily, weekly, monthly, depending on how much effort you wanted to put into it. And then your total revenue. And then calculating with a formula based on how much of an impact each of those platforms overall make. So you might find that, hey, we increased our spend 30K on Meta in November, thanks to Black Friday. We know that had a measurable impact. Can we repeat that when it's out of season? And I did this for one client for 2 years. Went back in two and a half years of data, and any single time we had a random spike in spend, there was a random spike in revenue increase. Now, we knew that was the case, but it wasn't until we actually had everything in a single document to go, okay, this is kind of cool. What happens if we triple the spend? Yeah, it went bananas. And that is a very crude way of looking at it, but it's a very efficient way to go, what platforms can we increase and decrease without sacrificing revenue? And where do we need to place that budget in order to be able to grow and hit those KPIs?
Yeah.
We're doing this with one client and they are 18 days behind in orders. Sucks. He's happy, but it's a really good problem to have. Obviously, we just got to figure out the CSR side of things, but that's another problem altogether.
So we work with brands that, on the lower end are spending no more than, a few grand on their marketing budget a month, and others that are spending $250,000 a month on, even just one singular platform. Talk us through the difference, the different strategies involved in someone starting out, and anyone listening right now, if you are starting out on, say, a few grand a month, just, doing $50 a day, $100 a day on Meta or Google, depending upon what your business type suits best. And then, going all the way on the other side and spending and managing a campaign up north of $250,000. And I'm sure there's bigger budgets out there as well that we've managed. What are the different strategies involved there?
So it's actually not as different as it used to be. There's still AI requires data. So Advantage Plus definitely underperforms in some scenarios if you are just starting out. But a lot of it just comes down to just split testing offers, content, a lot more when you're starting to see coming into the 6-figure marks and 7-figure marks. But outside of that, it's actually become a lot more closer than it ever has been. A lot of it just comes down to when you're starting out, just so much more testing. Once you're kind of hitting those sort of 6 or 7-figure months, the actual, ironically, becomes actually a little bit easier. Still difficult, but there's just, you can kind of rely on the algorithm to deliver the results a lot more efficiently, as opposed to if you're just starting out. But testing is just so important, but more so than just testing is learning from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is they're just testing for the sake of having content to fill that gap, but they're not learning from that content. What types of ad copy works? What structure of ad copy works? Long form, short form, educational. And from the types of content that they're putting out, creatives. If you have 6 or 7 different things that you've just plonked into Canva and hope for the best, our brand's actually learning from that content. What types of ads work? And if they're learning from it, excellent. But that's where I do find you need to do a lot more of starting out, is just learning from the mistakes, learning from what hasn't worked, and then building a foundation to refine that process.
Yeah. And I think the easiest way to look at it is that there's 2 forms of scaling. When you're starting to get wins on the board and you're looking to invest more in marketing, there's vertical scaling, and that's like just throwing more budget at the one platform or the one medium. This doesn't just necessarily mean that you're just using Facebook. It could be in any medium from a marketing point of view. Vertically scaling is just throwing more budget at it, and that could be with more content, more copy. And there's horizontal scaling, and that's when you diversify across other mediums. So at what point should a brand start to consider both the horizontal and vertical scaling and diversifying across other platforms? At what point do you go, we've got wins on that platform or that medium, when should we start diversifying, de-risking the marketing strategy over to something else?
Yeah. So for, any lead generation accounts, I'd recommend the more horizontal approach. So having different offers, split testing those different offers. So if you are trying to get on a conversation to sell an $8,000 program, then you might have 3 different ways, all approaching the same objective. You could have a live webinar, you could have a VSL, you could have a lead gen using email optimization to get those calls. That's where horizontal scaling is much more efficient. E-commerce, a little bit more of both. But as you start to spend more and more and more, you start to need to diversify into the horizontal side. But that's not every account is different. So it's not a rule, but that's generally what I tend to see overall. But yeah, the lead generation side, you have to have that horizontal scaling.
Yeah.
It's much more volatile.
Having, a lead gen campaign, whether that's like an ebook or a VSL to gather those leads, and then having maybe a webinar, and then having maybe a live event. So throwing different campaigns out there, not necessarily relying on the one thing to begin with.
Yep.
And then as you are progressing and you're getting wins on the board, you might find that events is your jam. So you just go real vertical on that.
Yeah. And it's just important to have the separation between those 3 funnels. So that example is great, but if you don't know how to dissect the data to make decisions, you don't want to be throwing money into, say, an ebook campaign you've spent $5,000 on it and you've generated 1 call, which didn't lead to a sale. Like, even if the front end shows $1.20 per opt-in for a lead, that $1.20 is you're just generating leads at that point for the sake of generating leads.
Yeah, I think people went nuts when like people started buying media online, and even banner advertising pre-social media. There was so many different just intricate funnels that people were running, and people still do run them, with doing a little what you call a lead magnet, then going to a tripwire where they offer you like a low ticket item that could be a $50 physical ebook or whatever it is, and then jumping up to then a higher mid-range product that could be a few $100s, and then going to their core offer, which could be a higher ticket $5,000 or $10,000 offer. That still works, but I feel like customer sophistication has increased, and I think people just see through that bullshit. And I think that people have just gone back to basics. They've just focused more on brand. They're focusing more on great content, because people are just, they're wanting better content. And you almost have to have talent in your brand in order to project yourself and build that trust. So like, how important is it for brands that we work with to have, an authority in the business and or have great content to work with?
It's obviously it's going to be always important, but it's also making sure that you differentiate from other people. There are so many people doing the same thing. Some things people are going to gravitate towards for whatever reason that might be. Some others are going to go a different direction. But it's, a lot of it really just comes down to identifying your niche and doubling down on that and building your brand around that. There's no rule. It just comes down to that's where a lot of organic content and utilizing your metrics from organic content, excuse me for saying this, but throwing shit at a wall and see what sticks. It's a simple term, but it's just so damn important, and understanding how to utilize that in order to be able to curate your offers.
Cool. So dynamic advertising, what is it? How do we use it?
So from an e-commerce perspective, obviously the dynamic ads are still the creme de la creme of e-com. I don't know why they still work as well. Carousels have really gone down the tips over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. I've
not seen as many. Yeah.
I've got some clients I just said, look, carousels suck, stop doing them. Makes my job easier.
And for those of you who don't know what a carousel is, it's basically when you've got the image and you slide across, and it's sort of like a slideshow on the feed.
And, going to statics and videos, single image and video assets are still predominantly king. But we've got one client that's put in about 120 grand just on DPA in the last, I'd say 2 months since we started scaling. And dynamic ads are still the top performer. The more products you've got, the better it's always going to be. But again, it just does so well that making sure that you're utilizing that. If you're in e-commerce, you've got at least 10 products. It's the simplest way to get some good wins on the board. They drive higher clicks. They produce better add to carts. They produce good revenue. The algorithm's gotten so smart to the point where the right product is always going to be shown to the right person. And the consistency is there. My record so far, 2021 March, still active right now. It's had $450,000 on that ad, just that one ad.
Wow.
Still going. Haven't touched it. I've increased budget, decreased budget based on market. It's still the most consistent ad that I've ever run.
Wow. And for brands out there, I sort of consider it like a chicken and egg situation, like which one comes first. Retargeting is so important, you know, making sure that you engage with your existing customers and work harder on your warm audience, whether that is retargeting through an ad on Google remarketing or, you know, Facebook or Instagram remarketing or re-engaging your email list. But you obviously need a database and or website visitors in order to retarget. So it's all good and well to be able to say, yep, just go out there and throw some dynamic ads up and retarget. But if that business is not driving new traffic and increasing their web visitors and their web traffic, then like it's sort of, you know, you're in a tough spot. Like how does someone actually drive their web traffic?
So a lot of that it's actually solved with dynamic ads more recently. So dynamic ads is obviously fantastic. Its purpose was to show ads or products that user has already searched for.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's just such a fantastic tool. And this actually goes into Advantage Plus territory. Utilizing Advantage Plus, using dynamic creatives and dynamic ads has a twofold approach. It can get the people that are already in market, they've already visited, they just haven't purchased. But at the same time, it's just such a good tool to identify products that for two people that have never actually been to your business or never seen you before. And it kind of kills two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
And I think that's why alongside Advantage Plus, using dynamic ads, obviously don't solely rely on it, but I've seen ads account that have solely relied on it and have done well. But again, it just comes down to that testing phase. You know, while dynamic ads are fantastic, it doesn't work for everyone. But it would be a no-brainer if you haven't done anything on that. You'd be dumb not to.
So I want to get your insights over the past 7 or 8 years. What's been the most successful campaign we've run, and what's been the worst, and how? But let's go through the successful one.
All right.
What's been the best campaign we've ever run?
Funnily enough, dynamic ads.
Okay.
So,
what was the brand?
Uncle Rico.
Okay.
And just from a pure volume of expenditure that we've been able to achieve utilizing that, we wanted something else to work. You know, we didn't want to solely rely on dynamic ads. So we ran a test. We simply just placed one dynamic asset, one copy, 2 paragraphs. That was it. And then we had 14 other creatives in there, all promoting the rest of the product range using collection ads. So collections are a hybrid between using static and video, but with your products down the bottom there, alongside, you know, single products, carousels, just throwing everything to see what would work. Out of that, a total of 1.2% of spend on that one campaign was allocated to everything else. The other 99.8% all dynamic ads.
And for those of you who don't know, this is a fashion brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other strategies there that we've been able to maximize for them?
So one of the things that we've started to work on over the last few months is, while we love dynamic ads, there's already 6 campaigns all focused on dynamic ads targeting different groups of people. So what we ended up creating was a cluster, still utilizing Advantage Plus, but pretty much any product that we'd ever released in the last 2 years, a mass dump of every single one of those assets. No dynamic ads allowed in this campaign. It is purely to focus on what products that the market likes. And that is now our second best performing campaign. And we've managed to scale it up into 4 figures pretty comfortably per day spend.
Yeah, well,
without any measurable impact. And what we've noticed is some products that we just didn't expect to perform decided, I'm going to spend the most.
Yeah, right.
And that's why Advantage Plus is just so useful for being able to kind of rapidly test all of these things. I think we ended up with about 45 different ads. It's down to about 25. We haven't really injected much more since obviously Black Friday, Christmas has taken a lot of that. But next year, we're going to start ramping that up again.
And that's a lesson too. Like, always let the data do the talking.
Yep.
Don't ever assume that one campaign or one product is going to be your best seller until you get the customer feedback.
Yep.
So it's so key just to listen to your market, split test as much as possible, keep creating content as much as you humanly possibly can, and never stop split testing.
Yep, that's it. You can be a brand spending $50 a day or $5,000 a day. It literally doesn't matter. The whole process is identify what works, figure out a solution to what doesn't work, rinse and repeat perpetually forever. It's a real pain, but you have to be able to do that in order to be able to find that success.
Now, not every brand has the luxury of getting results like that. What's been one of the worst campaigns you've seen? I don't want to say one of the worst we've run, because we don't run bad campaigns at GMS, but what's one of the worst campaigns you've seen?
Actually, it's a good one. It's a recent client, and we did an audit on the account.
Yeah, because we've been doing a lot of audits. We call it like a workshop, right? So some brands who might not necessarily, because we get hit up, multiple times a day with businesses wanting to work with us, most of which are just not at the stage to work with an agency, and we actively advise them through that process. So we've been doing lots of workshops with brands who might not necessarily be at the stage to want to work with us, or might just not have the trust in working with an agency. So these audits have uncovered a lot of cool things that we've done over the past 6 months.
Yep. And also a lot of things that make me cry a little bit. So,
and by the way, these audits aren't just give us your ad account and let's have a look at it. It's literally takes us so long to do it. They're
60 something pages minimum.
Yeah, even more, 80 to 100. It's the last one we did went for 2 hours. We thought it was going to go for 90 minutes, but yeah, talk us through some of the scary things you've seen in those workshops.
Yeah, so I think it's one example that off the top of my head.
We won't mention the brand either.
No, we won't. But what we found was we were looking at the conversions and we're like, okay, that's not terrible. And when we dug a little bit deeper, this is specifically on Google, not on Meta, we found the search results were pretty much broad targeting only, not phrase match, not exact match, broad match. And I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. We're getting a lot of conversions on some of the broad match keywords. Let's just dig a little bit deeper. So we went into the individual search terms. 1,900 search terms were used within the 30-day window. And it was keywords that were so unrelated, it made me cry. And it was painful to see that, because there was about 30% of their spend was allocated to search terms that just made zero sense for them. Absolutely nothing. Ironically, some were getting conversions, but ridiculously high. But their goal now, since we've taken over, drop for spend 50% on their ads and maintain the existing volume of overall leads that we're getting. And honestly, just with the change that we've made, we'll probably achieve that. So, and it was just such a simple thing. Just look at some of the keywords that Google were deciding to put on because it was broad match, switch to phrase match, and we should be able to see the results within a week or so.
So I want to sort of talk about like one thing that we're doing more and more of, and I think like there are so many agencies out there, and they make other agencies look bad, particularly the ones that are just throwing crazy prices out and or not backing up their claims. One thing that we've been doing a lot of recently is these digital workshops called the Amplify Method Audit, which is what we just spoke about. And the good thing with it is it builds trust in the process. So like if you're a brand and you're working or wanting to work with an agency, and agencies are not doing the due diligence on that brand, and there is a right time and place to work with an agency. So what's really good about doing workshops, before you actually commit to an agency, is that you sort of get to see what an agency is about. You get an actionable plan. These workshops go for 2 hours. We're able to also do due diligence on that brand as well. So it becomes a trust building process on both parties. And then, there's no obligation to then commit to want to work with us after that, but it puts them in a position to go, okay, I know exactly where I need to work on my ads. I know what I need to do with my content. I know now what I need to do with my messaging. And also I need to know what to fix on my websites and my conversion rate and my SEO. So a comprehensive digital marketing report before you even get into bed with an agency, I think is one of the key things that the brand should consider before they start jumping into 3, 6, 12-month contracts with other agencies. So yeah, that's one thing. And like the beautiful thing with that is that after that, they can choose whether they go, okay, we there's so much work that we need to do. We don't want to, we don't have the capacity to do it. So let us come back to when the right time comes and we'll get you to execute it. Or let's give it a crack. Let's get more wins on the board and we've got enough funds. And let's then get the resources to work with an agency. So like, how pivotal do you think that is moving forward?
It's been a game changer, really, because it gives us the opportunity to actually look at the account and see what they're doing, provide feedback and ask questions. Whereas, before, if a client comes on board and we get the ad account and we're like, oh, great, this is a bit messy. So it takes us longer to kind of get to that stage of what we need to do.
Yeah, if we didn't offer that and some brands slip through the cracks that might not be ready, then we realize through the onboarding, oh, fuck, your website's just like, it needs way more work. We can't run ads until that's fixed. Yeah. So it actually, it cripples a relationship if we bring a brand on, if we don't do that workshop in some instances.
100%. And, ever since then, it's been fantastic for us in terms of understanding the business before they commit. And we're not going to bring on a business that is not the right fit. And that's something that we pride ourselves in, is if they're not ready, we're upfront about it.
Yeah.
But here's a plan. If you follow that plan, it's likely that you'll see success.
And I think that's so important. And one thing that we've built really, really good reputation on is that we don't just take on anybody. And, sure, we've taken on some brands that potentially probably weren't the right fit, and that does happen. But I think we're really good at now understanding and looking at a brand and doing our due diligence and saying, you're just not ready. These are the things you need to have in place before you start committing and spending money on advertising. There's always exceptions to the rule. We see some brands who have got prior knowledge that go into a new business and they're able just to get it straight away. But for the most part, if you're doing less than 10K a month, then there's probably things that need to be in place before you start committing. So yeah, doing due diligence on both sides and ensuring that you're making the right decisions, because you don't want to be throwing, all your budget down the drain, particularly if you've got the wrong messaging or you've got the wrong content or you don't have enough stock or you got all this traffic and leads but you can't convert them. It's just going to be a waste of time and a waste of everyone's money.
Yeah, like it can be simple as the wrong offer. It's so many times that we try to reskin an offer and those offers just don't work out. And that could be as simple as just tweaking the offer. Even if you're making the same amount of revenue from that one sale or that one offer, providing it in a slightly reworded way might be a simple fix. There's been multiple times in the last 24 months that we just reskin an offer. The value to the client is still exactly the same, but to the consumer, it's reworded differently, that it's different enough that it just goes from, 0.4, 0.5 click-through rate at a 0.8% conversion rate on the back end to tripling the click-through rate and quadrupling the conversion rate, just with a simple tweak in messaging.
So I feel like a really, really great milestone in business is sort of hitting that 20K mark. I feel like you sort of validated your business. 20K a month, I feel, is like, you're getting somewhere and you're able to start allocating some resources either internally or externally. But what would you say to a brand who's either approaching that mark or maybe surpassed it and looking to get to that next level, and get to the 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures a month?
So I think the biggest part is trust the process, but listen to the people that are giving you the feedback. We're not giving feedback just because we want to. It's because it's a necessity to grow. So it could be as simple as, hey, we need to optimize that product page, or we need to look at some of the data to kind of figure out where things are dropping off or where people are dropping off. And it's just making sure that that feedback is actioned as opposed to going, okay, cool, and then not doing anything. Because again, the ads play a big part in the role of the grand scheme of things. But unless everything else falls into place, it's just so difficult to see that success.
So 2024, what's some of the main strategies and things brands should be looking for?
So obviously we've already gone through the Advantage Plus and Performance Max and making sure brands can utilize that. A lot of it just really comes down to just the user experience. People care more these days, more than ever, around how they utilize, how people are going on the website and how they interact with the ads. A big part of that is, thanks to TikTok and Instagram Reels, is creating that sort of more personal branding approach as well, rather than just pushing product. Now, some brands that still works, but having that sort of different style of content has really seen an uptick, especially if you're running ads on TikTok and Instagram is a predominant part of your marketing strategy, we're definitely seeing some resurgence in that.
How important is AI going to be in 2024 and moving forward after that?
That's a really good question, because AI is integrated into sort of every part of what we do. Advantage Plus and Google's Performance Max is essentially AI. While it's a lot of things that are reskinned, like you remember the little tick box under your interest targeting that was expand audiences. That is a glorified version of Advantage Plus. So there are reskinned versions of what Facebook are calling Advantage Plus, but the thing is, it works. It's just a matter of feeding that engine. The more content, the more creative, and just making sure that you turn things off that aren't working. That's some painful things that I've seen, that people are just leaving ads running for 4 months. And great, don't care if it works, couldn't care less. But you see one ad and it's the second highest spend and it has a cost of acquisition 5 times higher than everything else. It just makes me just so angry sometimes. It's such a simple thing. Like, as long as you're turning things off, like, I can't believe I'm saying this in 2024, but sorry, 2023, good Lord, I'm
basically
ahead of myself.
2024.
Basically. But that's the thing. It's just going sometimes back to basics. My optimization strategy is so mundane, but it has treated me the last 7 or 8 years that I've been working in this industry so well. Select all your active campaigns, go straight to the ad sets, go by top spend to bottom spend, turn off anything that is not performing well, and use your comparison tool. Compare last 7 days to the previous 7 days. Compare the last 3 days to the previous 3 days. Compare 30 days to the previous 30. It's so simple, but so many people forget that comparison tool exists. I can optimize a campaign or an account that spent $3,000 to $5,000 a day and use that, and I'm in and out in about 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be complicated. It's just making sure that you understand how that data works. Facebook, once it sticks to an ad, it'll spend on it. Inevitably, it will die. Sometimes Facebook doesn't always get it right. And sometimes it'll continue to spend, even if that ad has already cracked itself 3 to 5 days ago. But it still wants to try and push it. It's just making sure that you can just go in, shut those down. That budget will allocate somewhere else, rinse and repeat every single time.
What do you think is going to be the biggest shift over the next few years in digital marketing?
Honestly, it's just, I think we're already at that sort of point now that a lot of things have changed. iOS 14.
Surely there's a tipping point. What else can change?
I mean, unless I can download stuff into me noggin, I think we will start to see more in terms of the tracking approach, but outside in the physical world. So I think that's a big part where I've obviously, it's really hard to kind of figure out exactly what's going to change, to be honest, because there's so many factors. Like, AI is obviously from Performance Max and Advantage Plus. AI tools have been integrated into the ad campaign, ad set, and ad levels across both Facebook and Google. Snapchat's starting to do it. TikTok is starting to come up with that approach. Like, Facebook's version is a little bit mundane, but I think it's more about how can we shift from pushing just conversions only to building a brand. Yeah. And that's, funnily enough, what we said probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where it's 100%. Building that brand, but nothing's really changed. Yeah. So it's perspective.
I think it's going to be a mix between this digital AI revolution, which is just creating the ability to automate a lot of tasks. And I think that's going to allow people who aren't tech efficient to be able to be tech efficient in their business. Like, I get asked all the time, like, what AI tools do I use? I don't necessarily use them on a day-to-day basis because I'm already pretty tech efficient, and also we've got a team to be able to operate departments. Obviously, if you're a solopreneur or you're a solo business owner, and there's only so much time you can give, and you're trading time for money, this is where AI is going to be a huge time saver. Example would be, you'd think that a copywriter would be at risk of their job with AI, but we work with very, very good copywriters who are using AI and leveraging it to create more efficiency out of their output, but also create more services using AI. So one service would be creating a messaging brand identity that you can then upload into AI. So then it makes the prompting much easier for you to then for AI to understand your brand. So copywriters are not only to then increase output, they're also allowed to create more diversity in their services. So I think the combination between creating more efficiency is going to be key, making sure that we can automate businesses and we're not, manually typing the same email every time and manually searching for all this data across all these systems. And I think there is a huge fragmentation going on right now with technology, and I can see it from the credit card, how many subscriptions we have. And I'm constantly going, do we need that? Do we need that? Do we need that? And wanting to do reconciliation. But at the end of the day, we almost do need them all to operate as a digital business. But there's got to be a consolidation. I feel that's what AI will eventually be. There will be an all-in-one solution. And I feel like the time-saving element from so much manual shit we're doing on the computer right now, there's so much time wasted on, deleting spam emails every day, to finding your bloody password, which I had to do this morning on a new computer. It's just, there is so much time wasted online, and I feel like there is going to be more efficiency, and therefore that's going to allow us to be more humanized and have more human connections. So I feel that's going to be the biggest shift.
I'm really glad you said that, actually, because for me, I love the marketing side, but to be honest, what I love is the connection that I have with the clients. That, we've changed lives, and
we do.
As long as we continue that as the main objective, yes, success on the ads is important to grow the business. But if they can go out and they're driving a crappy car because, they're focusing on that business, they just don't have time to have those sorts of luxuries. 6 months later, they're driving a Tesla because of the work that we've done and the way that we communicate with those clients and keeping them up to date and informed. It's the best feeling. Just come back from a meeting just before this podcast and they're setting some amazing numbers, and we've got some big plans for next year. We know the gaps, and this is a very successful business, but we know where the gaps are, and we bring in the partners that we need to be able to fill that gap and make sure that we can see that business have an even more successful year next year. And customer service for us, that for me anyway, is I love it. And that's the part that makes me do what I do every day.
And that's literally why we do what we do.
Yeah.
We don't just run ads because we like ads.
We change lives.
In fact, I don't think anyone necessarily froths on ads. Creating ads is great and it can be fun.
I do a little bit.
You're a nerd.
Yeah, that is true.
But the outcome of what we do from advertising is changing people's lives. We all love marketing in the business, and marketing is an essential thing to do, but the outcome of what we're doing is literally changing people's lives. We are realizing brands' potential, and as a result, they're able to provide better service to their customers, which then in turn helps their customers have a better life. And whether that is through buying the new outfit or actually going to an event and buying an info product that could change their life, there are so many ripple effects with what we do, and I feel like it is realizing people's dreams and potential online.
Yeah. It's very cheesy, but
it is.
It's great. I love it. Yeah. And that's what gets me out of bed every day.
Well, mate, I love you.
Love you too, bro.
So we've nerded out on a lot of advertising chat, but I want to go personal. You've been, you've worked remote since day one. You're living in New Zealand. You've moved a couple of times. You're living in a beautiful home right now in Auckland. Talk us through life in New Zealand, in your beautiful home, and also talk us through your pets and your fostering and everything you're doing in New Zealand.
Yeah, so we moved to out in the country, bought a lifestyle property there. Means that, holidays are a little bit less, but kind of holidaying at a lifestyle property is not that bad. And, we got 3 dogs, 3 cats. One of our dogs had cancer recently and had her leg removed. And it was really sad, but she's doing so well. And that's kind of our lives, our pets, been married for 9 years-ish. And my wife won't get angry at that because she won't remember either. But, we've got
to get her out here too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got family up in up north. So it's,
You just need someone to take care of the house and the pets.
That's it.
Dogs
that's
and the cats.
But yeah, like we live a pretty chill life, work Monday to Friday, jump in when I need to on the weekends. And outside of that, it's just relax and chill out with the neighbors or have friends come over for barbecues. That's pretty much our life cycle right now.
And the bang for buck for what you can get where you live compared to here, it's, mate, you're living in a mansion compared to...
but it is the Wops, so...
You're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so, you get it's still reasonably close to the city,
Yeah.
but I don't really like the city anyway. Sydney's, like, I'm walking through yesterday, going up the subway. The day before yesterday, walking up the subway, and I'm like, how the hell are there so many people around? If I went to the equivalent location in the city at the same time during that day, dead. No one's walking.
And Sydney's a smaller city compared to somewhere like New York or Tokyo, bloody hell. So, yeah, I feel you on that one. Now, let's go to the fostering. So I think it's really cool what you're doing with animals.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of cats, both of which have one eye. Is that right?
Yeah, so 3 cats, all have one eye that we rescued. The first 2... we were going to get anyway because we were good at treating cats with one eye, apparently. And then the last one was an absolute foster fail. But then we've started working with a charity called Saving Hope. Based in Auckland, they, rescue a lot of dogs, and we basically take the dogs, nurture them back to health, and around the 8-week mark, we find a home for them. And it's a vetting process. It's not first come, first serve. We want to make sure that the dog can work well with the people that are the potential fosters. And that's a lot of work. It's, me and the wife were not planning on having kids, just more dogs. And the fostering is damn hard, but it is so rewarding to be able to see. And we follow the families on Instagram and on Facebook after they're fostered.
Oh, nice.
And it's such a cool thing to see them interact with the dogs, and the vetting process we go through, like me and the wife personally, we are quite strict on who we think is the right fit. And it's just super rewarding and we love doing it. We've got the house and the space to be able to do it as well. So why not?
Yeah, awesome. Now, I definitely think we should get you out in Sydney more often. I think we should also come over your way. You can throw us a barbecue.
You can spin the place.
Meet all your cats and dogs.
Yeah.
What was the decision, you guys? How did you guys make the decision that you just like, nah, we don't want kids?
Honestly, it's always, when we first started dating, it was one of those things where we're just not really factored in at all. And then, we got married and we've just gone, we like the lifestyle that we live. Having kids will definitely change that. And my brother and his missus also have 2 kids now. So it's just like, okay, well, they've taken the brunt of that. I'm clear now.
Yeah.
Just more of a personal decision. There's no reason for it, I guess. It's just we like the lifestyle that we live. Yeah. Not having to, we like to sleep. So that's the big one.
I think it's great that you guys have actually just, mutually made that decision versus doing it out of peer pressure or because everyone else is doing it, which I feel that happens a lot.
Yeah. And, there's it's becoming more popular to go through that process.
Yeah.
We didn't care what other people thought. It was just one of those things that it's just not us. So
yeah, fair enough. So a couple more things before we wrap up. If you were, let's consider yourself back in high school, what would you say to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
Don't be a fuckwit.
When have you ever been that?
Oh, dude, you don't know me in high school. I was...
have you got a time machine? Let's go back.
Okay. I used to do the odd thing at a bus stop before class. A little bit of that.
Who didn't?
And I was just... I didn't care.
Yeah.
I physically can't look at a book and learn.
So you're a little renegade.
I wouldn't say a renegade. I was quite quiet. I had a few things that happened when I was 15 or so that kind of pushed me into a different direction. And as soon as I left high school, I started working. And, my dad has always been... he had worked for the same company for 30 plus years, and the work ethic that he had, I started an apprenticeship when I was 18, I think I was. And that work ethic kind of was ingrained into me. I was working in the printing industry at the time. And yeah, I think that's kind of where I got the above and beyond part, you know, and I started to understand school was not for me. I couldn't learn. You give me a textbook, I will just look at a textbook and go, I'm out.
Which is surprising because you're so intelligent and you just know so much about, you know, a lot of things, you know, but I guess experience trumps reading a book sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were no good at school.
Nope. Wow. Failed so badly it wasn't funny. We have in New Zealand what we call NCEA. I could barely spell it back then. I may be dyslexic. I have no idea. Never tried. But for me, I was really good at trigonometry. And
but you're not so good at maths, right?
That's where computers come in. My computer allows me to Google things. Yeah. So, but you know, it's definitely gotten better. But I can't learn from just looking at a textbook, and I can't remember it. But if I'm doing something myself, figuring something out, I will never forget it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer with action creates skills.
Yeah,
100%. Like learning it, but putting it into action straight away versus learning it and not putting it into action, or you'll forget about it. Big believer in that.
Yeah, and I've shifted industries multiple times. Again, I worked in the printing industry, then I worked in IT. None of them really are related, but they've all led to where I am now.
Which is a big part of like how we recruit, you know, like we bring people on that have just come out of university and rather than giving them this big thesis or, you know, sitting down and just telling them, you know, here's how it's done, we just throw them in the deep end because it's the best way to learn, you know, fail fast and then learn as a result of it. So yeah, iterate, learn, fail, it's all part of the process.
Yep, that's it.
So last question, where do you think you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Honestly, no idea. Never thought about
10
it.
10 years is far. Like, what are we even doing in the next 3 years?
I'm going to be in my mid-40s. Good Lord.
So will I, mate. I'll be there with you.
Honestly?
No 10-year plan?
No. Like, I just take things as it comes. Like, my vision is making, like, to be honest, nothing's really going to change. Like, I still want to make sure that whatever role I end up in, if I'm still a GMS, whether I'm doing something else, it's always going to focus.
Don't worry.
Nah. The thing is, it's always going to focus on the same thing. And it's the moral that I live by is just making sure, well, don't be a dick is my first moral, but making sure that whatever I do brings people the happiness that they want and to be able to help people. You know, and if I make more money from that, that's a bonus.
Well, we've got some big plans next year, and that can really open up some floodgates over the next even 3 years. So, whatever we do, mate, you're going to be there by my side as much as you don't want to be.
I'm in for the ride, and I'm all for it.
Joking. But mate, I could on my heart confidently say that I wouldn't be here without you. I don't think GMS would be here without you. I don't think a lot of brands that we've helped would be where they are without you. And mate, you're one of the most authentic, caring people I've ever met. And not only that, mate, you're just a great human. So we've got to get you out to Sydney more. I've got to come see your family in New Zealand.
Do it. Welcome anytime.
I'll walk your dogs and look after your cats, whatever it takes.
You're going to have to carry them.
But mate, appreciate you being on. Looking forward to our Chrissy party on Saturday to finally let our hair down after a big year. And mate, here's to the next 10 years, wherever that may be.
Appreciate it, brother.
Cheers.